You sign in and state your name for the record, please.
Hi, everybody. Happy belated 4th of July.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Let's hope
you.
the fireworks don't get rained out tonight.
Amen to that.
So Mr. Johns is at the moment,
Yeah.
getting his hair out.
So I had a question relating to an issue that Ms. Yagatich just brought up, and that's about truck traffic. I know that, I just learned this minute that we don't have any jurisdiction, it sounds like, over county roads,
State.
And
state roads, which are all the roads. I just learned that the residual waste trucks, the sandbox trucks, the other infrastructure trucks related to fracking will be traveling on. But the question I do have is, do we have an emergency response plan in place should there be, for example, a spill? So there are very large tractor trailers. There will be hundreds of them daily. Some of you may have seen them already. They're all over the place, actually. They're on the Parkway. I personally have to admit I didn't used to really like trucks, but I've been watching trucks recently because they've just been attracting my attention. Because there's lots of trucks on our roads, especially at that second busiest intersection in the state of 48 and 22, where these related to fracking infrastructure trucks are passing now in real time. And these brine trucks are not the kind of salt that are supposed to be put on roads.
Correct.
In the newspaper, we've been reading that they've been using this toxic product on the roads, but it's not supposed to be on the road. So if there is, for example, and we should never wish any of this on any of us, but if there were a spill, for example, at the corner of 48 and 22 in Monroeville or on Haymaker.
That's our worst case scenario, by the way, in planning, but go ahead, yeah.
Well, and again, I've never really been into fire trucks or emergency response
Maybe I
or
can help
police
you
or
out
any of
a
this.
little
But
bit.
Municipality has to have an emergency management plan.
And so,
Mr. Poach
Yes.
can explain.
Is
They'll
that-
explain it.
I'm interested specifically in toxic
Yes, ma'am.
waste cleanup. So,
Yes, ma'am,
yeah,
we do.
go ahead.
So, a couple of things that are out there, particularly to the well pads that are close in that Penn Township piece that we talked about too.
Well, right now, for example, the Midas pad is active, 6
Right, that
miles
you were-
north of where we're
That
standing.
way north. So, part of those, the material is supposed to be listed in the material safety, well, it used to be called material safety data sheets, safety data sheets
Wait,
now.
stop right there for a minute. Is it?
I haven't looked at it yet, to be honest with you, too. So, there is information to be available. At the 1,000-foot level, okay, irrespective of what the hazardous materials is, in the fire service and the emergency management plan, as well as law enforcement here in Monroeville, we have always considered any hazardous materials transport route as one of our top hazard vulnerability assessments for a problem. So when we do a regular assessment that's three-year basis, don't hold me to that one, but we do file with the county and with the state from emergency management, we list that as a high hazard. So hazardous material is. So much so, hazardous materials response is actually funded, by and large, from elements via the counties, from our local LEPCs, local emergency planning committees. Okay, it's a state-funded piece that has that. We've always exceeded that capability with a first response capability for hazardous material spills and response in the fire department. I can detail it more to you, but it's contained among all the departments up to the point where we call the operations level. We can take defensive actions to stop the problem from getting worse. So that's an ongoing capability within the fire department. For example, let's use that's an acidic-based, fracking solution that we talked about as one of the most common solutions. Or if the wastewater, which is being removed from one of the sites, is higher in, say, hydrogen sulfide. Okay. Number one, every heavy fire apparatus in this town can test for hydrogen sulfide vapors. Interestingly enough, it's a post 9/11 problem in our 4 gas meters. We have them in place too. So that's something we can look at. So it's not something that's been missed or we haven't looked at a hazardous materials transportation response. It's the same. 48 is a huge designated DOT hazardous materials transport route. The Parkway is. The Turnpike, the Parkway, Route 48 as well. There are numerous hazardous materials that are filed, kept on count of the state and informed to us for hazardous materials without the community. It's required under the LEPC portion of the act. So hazardous materials has been enough of a problem and a concern all of my career, all of Ron's career, Bob's, concerning Monroe. We've always taken that as a consideration.
Is that part of the stormwater management plan, MS4? And
Apples and oranges, always containment of the problem, but good question, okay?
You understand what I'm
Yes,
asking?
ma'am, I do. Containment, so like if something were to spill, one of the, we've had, actually in my career, we've actually had a spill head towards Avers Creek that we were involved with, that we helped contain until the contractor company came up to clean it back up, contained it, to keep it from getting into the waterway. The same thing on Route 22, we've had that, Route 48, those are things I've personally been involved with. One of the prime things in the defensive operations, is what it's termed, operations level response, is to contain the spill and keep it from waterways, storm sewers, and a number of lists. I'm giving you a short version of like a 40-hour course.
We try to contain it till the big
all the
guys
time.
get here.
Right.
You know, the companies that are made to clean that stuff up.
Right.
We had an 8,000-gallon Sunoco tanker truck overturned on 286.
Good one. That was a good one.
And that was,
what year was that?
well, it was a while ago, but
1992, Bob? Sounds
Around
like-
there.
Around there, about 1992, that turnover as well.
I mean, it went everywhere. I mean, you can imagine 8,000 gallons of gas, so. It's not easy, and you have to call in people that are bigger. We're just the first, as Eric said, we're the first responders, and the county comes, the state comes, the cleanup companies come.
At the expense, under, this is a DOT regulation.
company.
Carrier, the consignee, and/or the receiver of the hazardous material. That's in place too, so.
I can assure you that Sunoco came in here and reimbursed Monroeville of all
Mm-hmm.
its expenses.
Yeah, that's part of it too.
Okay, thank
It's
you.
wonderful the fire departments have all that capability, and we have such great volunteer fire departments, I think.
Yeah, and it's a capability that we've had, that we've recognized earlier on in the career that most folks don't normally have. That's not patting ourselves in the back, but we recognize it as a high hazard, and this plugs it in too.
Actually, we get Public Works involved.
We do too,
They have
also,
to bring
yes.
truckloads of sand or whatever.
Well, and would Monroeville be assisting, okay, I have another question, but that's about other communities. Okay, so I'm
I'll
gonna
be
let
happy
that-
to give you the brief of that
Okay.
plan. It's pretty
The,
standard.
the other question I have is, we were just looking at the MS4 plan, the draft that was proposed about a year ago at this time, and wondering if there was a public hearing announced for that.
Not yet. I was gonna,
then.
I was gonna report
And
on
what
it.
minutes were those in? Because we couldn't find them. We didn't remember, and we remembered that a lot of us were here last year at that time, but we couldn't,
16.
2016?
Is when we had the original.
I thought the
Mr. Little, is that
draft,
correct? Didn't we have it in 16?
Yes.
And then
That
we'll
is
be
correct.
having another one later in this year, and
okay.
it will be.
Well, it was a little
now-
bit, well, it might have been about a year and a half ago. It was a little bit, it wasn't exactly 2 years, about a year and a half ago.
okay, so I'm confused, because in the MS4 that we saw that was put out in June of last year, it said as part of that plan, it would include a public hearing.
No, I
That's gonna
think,
happen
I think what you're talking about,
Oh,
Alyssa, is you're talking about what's called the PR, what was the NPDES permit? There was,
Permit. Yeah.
Wait, talk in English.
It was the app.
Did you hear how many initials he
Now,
used?
wait a minute, because you don't talk in our English sometimes.
Okay, I'm trying.
I know.
all right,
I'm
I'll
doing
slow-
English
I'll-
much better.
National Pollution Elimination Discharge System, NPD.
Wait, say, I'm sorry, I was looking that
National
way.
Pollution Discharge Elimination System.
National Pollution Discharge
Just
Elimination.
NPD. And I
Elimination
I
system.
get it, the alphabet soup you talk about, and
Pollution.
every industry and profession has their own lingo.
Okay, so you had a national pollution, whatever the rest of it is,
In September of last year,
It-
For a
was a
permit.
public
Permit,
hearing.
public hearing.
in September of 17?
Correct.
Yes.
Well,
When
no, it
was-
was in August, and then
When
fall.
was it announced? Was I sitting here?
It was on the agenda.
I would bet you would have been.
We couldn't find
advertised.
it on the agenda or advertised, so I would appreciate if we could see that advertisement.
It was for the permit only.
It was only for a permit,
Only for-
A
yeah.
permit,
which was to give us a 5-year permit to work on the stormwater management. I mean, it's a 5-year permit.
We were,
that
it's
wasn't for a
mandated.
public hearing.
No, that was just, there will be a public hearing on the MS4 later this year, and it will
There
be
w-
advertised and announced.
Okay, so
And the
from what
permit
I,
was a part of the MS4 program, but it's
part of
not
it.
the whole thing.
from what I read in the MS4, and I didn't study it, but I looked over it, for the MS4, even before anything happens, it seemed to me in that document that there needed to be a public hearing.
There
So
will be.
There's going to be.
Before
that was just-
any other stuff?
Yeah, that was just a permit for the overall.
Okay, so,
It's
so
only a
a
tiny little
public
piece.
hearing, you're saying
Will
announcement
be
is coming up?
announced, and it'll be very
Step by
soon.
step.
So
Had
you
to
can
get our-
actually proceed, that's what.
We had to
it
get our
really
permit.
Boils down to.
You need a permit first, okay.
Yes.
First, and there was no sense in proceeding with our MS4 plan until we got the permit.
Correct.
So the permit, we had the hearing, the permit came.
You
It wasn't
had
a hearing.
the
I don't know
hearing,
that it was a
I
hearing.
don't
I believe it was advertised as a hearing, and
Yeah, it has to.
Was
as
it?
Jamie's story,
I would like to just see where that was
Yeah, let's
advertised.
look up the minutes and
Okay.
give them to her.
thank you,
Yeah,
Mr. Duncan.
okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
God, we're discussing and
Well-
we're guessing, let's get it done.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Yeah.
thanks.
We'll leave the floor open for anyone else who'd like to address council.
We're gonna get it done.
Well, I mean, look up the minutes and give it to her. It's a big
Yeah,
deal.
Mr. Sedlak, can you get that information for her? There you go, Lisa.
Bada bing.
Very good.